All right, we had quite a week this week. We're getting towards the end of the month, but I just want to talk about this week because this week was absolutely loaded. The week of 23rd June 2024. We start with the missile attack at a Crimean over a Crimean beach in which a American-made HIMARS missile that was fired by the Ukrainians detonated over a beach. I'm not sure if it was this beach, but it might have been. I mean, these are the only beaches around here, so who knows? But one of these beaches around here, the missile detonated and killed four people, including two children, and injured a whole boatload of people. Something like 151 people, because they're cluster munitions. They're anti-personnel weapons. They're supposed to be banned by the Geneva Convention. We threw that out the window a while ago. So the Russians were really pissed about this because the United States has to help the Ukrainians operate those HIMARS missiles because they rely on very sensitive technology, satellite technology, all of this GPS tracking technology, and the United States has to give the Ukrainians the targeting info and all of that. So the jury's still out. I haven't heard anything conclusive as to whether this was an intentional attack. There was a drone, a Global Hawk drone, flying somewhere over here at the time of the attack. That they've been generally they fly over in this area. And the Russians have basically said since then that a lot of things happened since then. The Russians were really pissed about this. So this was kind of like the last straw for them because it's not the first time Ukrainians have attacked civilians, but this particular incident with the Global Hawk here, the fact that it was a HIMARS missile, it really set the Russians off. So the next day, the Russians summoned the U.S. ambassador. They issue a démarche, which is a formal diplomatic sort of declaration that's among the most serious diplomatic communications you can issue. Basically, they said in no uncertain terms, they said right then and there that the United States and Russia are no longer in a state of peace. So basically, they're upping the ante and saying, we're going to start attacking you, probably through proxies. I mean, this is what a lot of people are saying is what the Russians are going to do is they're going to start arming people like the Houthis with more sophisticated technology. People like possibly, I don't think Hezbollah. They wouldn't do it to Israel because Russia has a good relationship with Israel. There's lots of Russians in Israel, Russian Jews, and I'm sure non-Jews in Israel. So I don't think they're going to really do anything that would directly harm Israel, but they are going to definitely give. I can see them giving Hezbollah advanced technology. You know, China, Iran, Afghanistan. Who knows who else? Probably some Western Hemisphere, dissident regimes like Nicaragua, Cuba. They're going to start arming them because that's what the United States has been doing: is arming a country antagonistic to Russia and giving them weapons to harm Russians. So now the Russians said we're gonna. They've said this a while ago. So this is a very This is getting very serious. Rumors. I've heard rumors that they've already shot down a manned vehicle over the Black Sea, unmanned drone over the Black Sea. So apparently there was a drone going over the Black Sea. People that track these things said that the thing just disappeared off of the tracking. So things are heating up. And then after that, like the next day or the day after that, Zelensky comes out and says, I'm going to prepare a comprehensive peace plan to end the Russia conflict. So I'm not sure what the angle is there, but seems like the attack in Sevastopol set off quite a series of events. On top of that, I don't know if I have this on this map, but the next day after the Russians issued the basically declaration of semi-war or quasi-war against the United States, Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, called the Minister of Defense in Russia. Apparently, it was a conciliatory call, as far as I can tell. Like, oh, we weren't responsible. We're sorry. We weren't responsible. We didn't want that to happen. This and that and the other. And my understanding is the Russians weren't trying to hear any of it. So we've pretty much, I think, crossed the red line here, and things can go really far south really quickly at this point. So we're gonna keep an eye on that. The next thing that happened, one of the most amazing things that's happened in years, Julian Assange was able to sign a plea deal with the Biden administration and walk free. And when this happened, I had some ideas about this. So the thing about the Julian Assange case, and I've been watching this case since day one. I was overseas. I was part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, or whatever that fucking Enduring Freedom, whatever the fuck that stupid oil war was called. I was there in the beginning. And, for me, when Julian Assange came out with the WikiLeaks documents about the Iraq war, years later, after the fact, when I was there, it was a big vindicating moment for me. And when Obama went after him, the Obama administration went after him after the State Department cable leaks. That's when I figured out that Obama, because I liked Obama, that's when I figured out that Obama was just like the rest of them, if not worse. He turned out to be worse than most of them, because he was also very smart and very charismatic, in addition to being an asshole. The Julian Assange case is something that I've watched happen and I've paid close attention to. They were trying, so this was an interesting thing. They were trying to get him on an espionage charge from the Espionage Act. I believe that charge has never been prosecuted before, saying that for the most part, from what I remember, the essence of the case was that he helped Chelsea Manning acquire the information, and then he disseminated that information. But the problem with it is there was no evidence that he actually helped Chelsea Manning. All he did was help facilitate Chelsea Manning getting the documents to him. And even then, if he did help Chelsea Manning in any way, there was a little case called the Pentagon Papers case back in the 1973, which firmly established that publishers, the press, in other words, and the press includes anyone who publishes information, the press cannot be criminally or civilly liable for publishing classified materials so long as they are in the public interest. So the whole Julian Assange case was a farce from the get-go. There was a guy in Iceland who the FBI roped into testifying against Julian Assange years ago. The guy was on child porn charges or something like that, and the FBI was trying to get him to testify against Julian Assange, saying that, yeah, he was part of the hacking operation to hack these materials, to get these materials that WikiLeaks eventually published. But then it turned out he admitted he was lying later on, and that only witness that they had basically said he was lying. Chelsea Manning committed a crime when she did what she did. She was a military member. She took information, she stole it, and she gave it to the newspaper. So Chelsea Manning, while she did the right thing under U.S. law, she was prosecutable. But Julian Assange was never prosecutable. He didn't commit a crime. And I think that in addition to it being a political move, maybe a slight political move, the Justice Department probably thought that they didn't want this case to get into the U.S. courts because he was indicted in the District of Virginia. Now, I hear people saying online he was going to a military tribunal. I don't think so. I believe he was indicted at a federal district court in Virginia. It would have went through the courts. It would have went to the Supreme Court. And although it's not certain because nothing is in the court system, it's highly likely that he would have eventually been acquitted, because what he did was exactly what Daniel Ellsberg did. He published information that was in the public interest that just happened to be classified. So I think that the Justice Department and the Biden administration cut their losses, made a good political move as well, and they said, let's just end this. Plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit and go home. And that's it. And he's free and clear. So this was a great moment for all of us who have been watching the Julian Assange case for many, many years from the beginning. He is perhaps one of the greatest heroes. I mean, I'm not saying he's superhuman or anything, but as far as his heroism, nobody in our time really comes close to what Julian Assange did for the truth. Next thing that started happening, was massive protests broke out in Kenya over a tax law that was signed by Parliament to try and right the country's sort of upside down financial situation. Now, my thoughts on this are, in addition to this being about the tax law, I think Ruto has turned out to be a big disappointment for Kenyans. Ruto came out swinging against the Europeans in the beginning, talking a lot of shit, but lately he's been looking like a U.S. puppet. The first African leader in 30 years to go to Washington, D.C. That's fine. That's good. But what did he go to D.C. for? To take a bribe so that he would send troops on a mission to Haiti, which is a mission that Kenya has no business being involved in, to clean up the mess that the U.S. made. Because for some reason, obviously we don't want to send American troops there. How about we just leave Haiti alone, stop robbing them? How about that, all right? How about we just stop robbing countries in the Western Hemisphere? But that whole thing, I think, has disillusioned a lot of Kenyans into believing that he is sort of a U.S. puppet. And for someone who in the beginning was really talking a good talk and pointing out a lot of the hypocrisy of the Europeans, he's turned out to really sell out. So I think a lot of the protest anger, the underlying anger, there's an element of that part of it too. Okay, so then after that, later on in the week, we had a brief and unsuccessful and obviously either U.S. or European orchestrated coup against the socialist president of Bolivia. It was one of the generals tried to oust him from power. This has happened many times in history before. I remember seeing a story from Telesur. It's probably on one of my maps a couple months ago, where they were saying something's going to happen in Bolivia. So Bolivia, the media was trying to say it was a self coup. In other words, this was so the media comes out right after, and there's all these stories like, oh yeah, that was a self coup. So they invented a new word there, self coup. Yeah, this was a self coup, and nobody from the outside was involved in that. Okay, let's put two and two together. This has happened before. It's been external countries have been, mainly the United States, have been heavily involved in Bolivia and in regime change in Bolivia before. And they're one of the most mineral-rich countries in the world. Okay? And we're seeing this scramble right now among the United States and the two other major power blocks in the world, Russia and China. Mostly the United States and China are competing for the good graces of all of these countries around the world. Democratic Republic of the Congo is one of those. Interestingly, Putin and the president of the Republic of Congo met over here in Moscow earlier this week. So we're seeing this scramble for Africa. We're seeing also China getting very cozy with Peru, another mineral-rich country. So we're seeing this scramble. So if this, as the Duran would say, if you think this was not a Western-backed coup, I got a bridge to sell you. Okay, Malay, no, Uruguayan ambassador. So here we have the Uruguayan ambassador wanting to talk to China. So that's the main things that happened this week. We have the Houthis continuing to do their thing in the Red Sea, which is turning out to be a big debacle. Interestingly, at the beginning of the week, one of the first there was an attack. I tried to, estimate where it was based on the description. Right about here, that was at first they thought it was Somali pirates. It's so close to this area, but it would look like a Houthi attack way out here, so very far away. So they're getting more advanced. Who knows? Maybe they're already getting technology from the Russians. Who even knows? Interesting story a couple days ago. Believe it was. Yeah, so no, that wasn't it. I don't have it marked on here, but apparently now, after the Israelis, IDF said that they had northern Gaza taken care of just the other day, they're going back into northern Gaza. So the Gaza war is turning out to be a complete debacle. We have saber rattling between Israel and Lebanon. That's continuing. It almost seems to me like they want to put the Gaza thing behind them because it looks like it's a disaster. They're already admitting that they're not going to be able to eliminate Hamas, as all of us knew from the beginning. And now they want to start a war with Lebanon, probably simply because Netanyahu wants to stay in power and he needs to keep a war going, because once the war is finished, he's done and he knows it. So over here in Asia, we have Mongolia having an election. Apparently the ruling party is not doing so good. We got right after, so we had the WEF actually somewhere over here around Beijing. I don't think it was in Beijing. Somewhere around Beijing, the WEF, and you had a lot of things going on. Putin went to Vietnam first. And this is a story that came out a little after Putin's visit. Russia's going to help Vietnam develop nuclear energy. So right after Putin goes to Vietnam, the United States rushes a diplomatic team over to Vietnam. And they're like, we're friends, right? And they're like, we're friends. Sure. Okay, U.S. And then the Vietnamese prime minister meets Xi Jinping at the WEF. I think it's over here, Dalian. Yeah, that's where they were at, Dalian or something. What do we have over here? China successfully. China is doing a reusable rocket. Who knows? Maybe when Elon Musk went to China, he helped them out with that. You still have. This is an interesting one. This is a story that Reuters actually. It's a Reuters exclusive, and basically, it's come out that the Department of Defense or the Pentagon had a huge, massive online sort of psyop operation going where all of these fake accounts were being created online, and the whole purpose of this propaganda operation was to basically say that the Chinese, this is back in COVID times, that the Chinese vaccine for COVID is bad and you should get the American vaccine. So a lot of people, the Philippines, I don't know how big a deal this is over there. There were some politicians saying that, they want clarification. So basically they have to say something, right? My question is, why is the Department of Defense basically running a propaganda operation in order to basically promote a product from a privately owned company like Pfizer or Moderna? So we have basically the Pentagon doing psyops for private companies now, because that's essentially what it is. Basically, they were saying, don't take the Chinese vaccine, take the American vaccine. But that's a privately held company. So why are you doing psyops for them? Very interesting. Sri Lanka is going to be in the news off and on. It's an important strategic area. What happened in Dagestan? Yeah, right after the attack on Sevastopol, I think the same day, you had this crazy terrorist attack in Dagestan. People immediately, want to come out with it's the Americans behind it. You know, the Americans deserve these sorts of accusations. We do. We deserve it because we've sponsored so much terrorism all over the world. I mean, the Crocus City Hall thing. That was very suspicious. But anyway, we had this brutal attack over there on the same day. And Erdogan talks with Putin. You know, if I were Putin, I would not be talking to Erdogan. He's kind of a snake. Javier Milei over here. Okay. This was interesting. International Court issues arrest warrants for Shoigu and Gerasimov. So a lot of people are saying that this was to kind of counterbalance the threats of prosecution against Netanyahu because the Americans and the British and some of the Europeans were so pissed off about the ICC trying to regain its credibility back by charging an actual war criminal with a crime. So it looks like this was an effort to placate them. And I just heard just recently, maybe today, that the ICC is talking about delaying any prosecution against Netanyahu. So it looks like whatever lobbying campaign the United States and UK put on the ICC, it's worked. I mean, who cares? The ICC's lost all credibility anyway, so they might as well just be a kangaroo court. That's about it. I'm going to keep it at 21 minutes. Yeah, time to stop recording. I am out.